moving into the bottom 10, Patriots, Giants, Steelers, Panthers, Broncos, Titans, Commanders, Buccaneers, Raiders, Saints. Obviously, you look at these and you say, avoid. Now, you can't completely avoid them. There's definitely some good players on this team, and there's potential there. And then obviously the other angle that you look at it is, well, obviously they're not going to score as many points because the teams aren't going to score points. But if you look at it, the angle is these teams are all going to be trailing, especially in these weeks specifically. They're going to have to throw the balls. And then now we're looking at pass catchers, right? How efficient are we going to be? Maybe not so much. Again, a lot of these teams have QB issues. So starting with the Patriots, who's going to be starting quarterback? It's looking like Jacoby Brissett. Drake may come in later on, but I doubt they want their rookie quarterback to just get blown to shreds on probably a poor offensive line with a bunch of young receivers, Pop Douglas, Javon Baker, Jalen Polk. I'm missing a couple, but and then you got Hunter Henry. Again, all these guys are going late, so taking these guys late round flyers, especially like Jalen Polk and some of the other guys, not a bad thing because there's definitely a path to wide receiver 1 status for them on their team, not overall fantasy point. And then Hunter Henry's fine grab an underdog. Definitely should have some spike weeks. This team's gonna have to pass the ball a lot, and then Ramondre is still a good play, especially at where he's going now compared to last year. He should be the sole back there. I'm not worried about Antonio Gibson. Ramondre did sign a decent deal, and he can pretty much bear the workload there. The Giants, from what I've done my research on, I think Danny Dimes can come back and be better than what people think. So I don't expect them to be this bad. I'm pretty high on Danny Dimes in terms of the stats that I've seen. He is a really accurate passer and is consistently on target. His on target percentage was actually the highest 2 years ago in the NFL. And that's when he was, got all that money and he was a great quarterback. Everyone was so high on him. And then last year just fell off and got injured. But I don't think they're going to be this bad. It all depends on line play. Obviously, lose Saquon, bring in Devin Singletary. I think Devin Singletary is a fine late round pick. Danny Dimes is a great late round flyer. Redraft leagues, I even throw him on your bench. Then Neighbors, I'm not as worried about Neighbors as I was because he's going a little bit later. Especially in redrafts, he's definitely later than Underdog. I really do like that. And I'm higher on him because of what I learned about Danny Dimes' accuracy. So I think that Neighbors could overproduce his projections, and I think the Giants could outproduce their projections as well, as much as people are down on them. So that's my take on it. Moving on to the Steelers. That's another question mark at quarterback. Again, all these teams have question marks at quarterback. Bring in Russ, bring in Fields. I'm really high on Pickens for the same reasons that I just talked about with Neighbors and Danny Dimes. Russ is a very accurate ball thrower, specifically deep ball thrower, has a high on-target percentage for the most part in his career. So Pickens should have a really good year, barring a trade for like Brandon Ayuk or anybody. There's no wide receiver 2 for the Steelers. So the other value would be is getting Big Pat Freiermuth in the later rounds. He's going as like pick 132 or something on Underdog. So he has a potential to be that number 2 guy there. And same with Najee and Jalen Warren. They kind of go back to back 80s, 90s in drafts where I think the line got significantly better, especially in the draft. Broderick Jones moves into another year. We should be well off there. So running back should definitely be more efficient. I think this offense will be better. It's just the problem is playoff schedule is so hard for them. Again, with the Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, who are all projected to be really good. So again, should be good regular season guys. I do like George Pickens no matter what. Panthers, Bryce Young, second year. Can he do it? They bring in Deontay Johnson. I think he's going to be the guy there. Again, love picking him up. I think he's a great steal. He's going to like pick 70 something Underdog. Love him in the later round. Other than that, though, the Panthers really have nothing going for them. They draft Jonathan Brooks. He's coming off an ACL. Chuba could potentially still see some carries there. Probably will be the starter to start the year. So that's like a split backfield, three ways: Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Brooks. I'm staying away from that, especially on a horrible offense. Deontay Johnson's the only one I even like on that offense. That's that. Broncos, looking like Bo Nix will be quarterback. Obviously, Zach Wilson and Stidham are in the mix, but Bo Nix should be the starter there. Not really high on Cortland Sutton. I've taken him a little bit, but I don't think he repeats the touchdown production he had last year, and I just don't think he's that great of a player, especially being an older receiver. They bring in Troy Franklin, who I don't know too much about, but it looks like he was working with the ones. Overall, I'm avoiding this offense a little bit. I do take late round flyers and like Javonte Williams or Jaleel McLaughlin. I like the backfield more than I like the receiving options. But I will take some of these guys just because they're super late round flyers, Marvin Mims, whatever, and just hope something sticks. Tennessee, this is where things get interesting. Will Levis, great deep ball thrower, which makes him a great best ball quarterback for the receivers. So Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, as you saw last year, D-Hop had some really big spike weeks. Now, Ridley does go a little bit earlier than D-Hop this year. I don't mind taking one or the other. The coaches have come out and said they want Ridley to be more of Jamar Chase and play that role where he can run the whole route tree and do certain things, which he didn't get to do in Jacksonville. Maybe that ends up being different. Will Levis isn't really the best underneath thrower, though. So we'll see what they scheme up in Tennessee. The running back situation looks to be like 50-50. They said the backs are interchangeable with Tony P and AJ Spears. So a lot of just question marks on this team. What's really going to happen? Again, Will Levis was super inaccurate. Actually, the most inaccurate quarterback last year. I guess the only way is up for him. So if you want to take that gamble, obviously Vegas has them not the worst team in these last couple weeks. So I'm not mad about taking like a Ridley or D-Hop if they fall. And then I'm more on the Spears train than the Pollard train, because Pollard, I think, is just out of juice after that tightrope surgery he had last year. Moving on, Commanders. What's this offense going to be? Again, like the Broncos, rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels. He could potentially himself be a great fantasy quarterback just in terms of his rushing upside. But what does that mean for everyone else? Terry McLaurin's just kind of been the same receiver throughout his whole career with a bunch of different quarterbacks. So I'm not super high on him, especially where he goes. I don't think he ever makes it, really has the upside to be a wide receiver one. Jahan Dotson might be a better player. You can get him like 130s, 140s in underdog drafts, and he can have some good spike weeks for you. And then as far as Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler goes, I'm avoiding them too because Brian Robinson, some of his bigger games came off of like some busted plays in the air where he just like ran for like an 80-yard touchdown or had some big catches, but he only had average like 3 targets a game without those random weeks, and it wasn't for a lot of yards. And with Eckler coming in, that's going to be his main job, as that's always been his main job. So I'm kind of down on both of them this year. And Brian Robinson goes ahead of Austin Eckler. In my opinion, avoid that backfield. And I'm kind of avoiding the Commanders altogether, unless it's like a Jaden Daniels who can go unstacked because of his rushing ups. Buccaneers, similar situation as last year. Rachaad White going to get most of the volume. Baker's going to be Baker. Had a pretty good year last year, a career year. Mike Evans going to do Mike Evans things, 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, whatever it may be. Chris Godwin is due for a little bump up, but that's kind of baked into his price. He didn't get a lot of touchdowns last year. He had about the same amount of targets as Mike Evans. Chris Godwin never really is the touchdown type of guy. He's an underneath guy. But that's that there. Nothing new, in my opinion. Rachaad White's going to be the same as he was last year. just a ton of volume. It's going to fluctuate a little bit on scoring if they're good or not, but this seems to be about average of what they were last year. Raiders, again, question marks at quarterback. I think the Bucks and Saints are the only ones that don't have a pure question mark at quarterback. You know what you're going to get out of Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield. Who's even going to start, Minshew or O'Connell? We don't know. If you watch receiver on Netflix, Devontae Adams been pushing for, he likes Aiden O'Connell. They paid Gardner Minshew, so we'll see. Again, I'm avoiding the Raiders a little bit. Now, the one thing that stands out is Devontae Adams had a ton of targets that weren't catchable. So I expect that to get better and move in the right direction. So maybe Devontae Adams could be a better pick. I think he's better than some of the guys going in front of him, as he always gets slept on and then just produces and has his spike weeks. And then I like Brock Bowers. Fading Jacoby Myers just because I don't know how much passing volume there's going to be. You don't know how much scoring there's going to be. And with Brock Bowers coming in, it's going to likely be that Jacoby Myers moves down a tier in terms of targets. And then Zamir White, kind of avoiding him too with his pass catching ability, not fully there, and more relying on rushes and probably not going to be the highest scoring offense. Obviously avoiding the quarterbacks, that they're not even an option for me. Moving into the last team on the list, New Orleans Saints. I expect similar to last year, kind of like again, bottom 10 mediocre offense. Derek Carr is Derek Carr. I don't think at this point in his career he's going to be getting any better. A little bit of fluctuations here and there. I think Olave could catch or get some more catchable balls. He always has a ton of air yards that kind of unrealized. But even then, I think Olave always goes too early in drafts for my liking, because the last 2 years he really hasn't taken that next step. Now it is his year 3. He could take that year 3 bump, but I just don't think that's going to happen with Derek Carr. Michael Thomas leaves, but it's not like he was doing much anyway. Shaheed moves into that number 2 role, and that's more of the player that I'm targeting for spike weeks and Underdog, because he can kind of really blow up on some plays. In terms of Olave, I'm still not too high on him. He's a wide receiver 2 to me in fantasy football, and never really will have the upside to be that 1 without a better quarterback and a better offense. And then lastly is this Kamara. Like, Kendra Miller just got hurt. Looked like a hammy. Don't know the severity. It really looks like Kamara is just going to be the same thing with less juice. So he'll be check down merchant, PPR merchant, getting a ton of passes with limited scoring upside, and not really going to break away a ton of runs all the time. So I would expect for the Saints the same out of all these players as last year, besides Shaheed. I'm higher on Shaheed. I hope we hit all the points. I'm going to have timestamps for all these talking points. Appreciate you guys for listening and tuning in. Catch you next time. Peace.